Hello everyone, this is Laura Susan Johnson with Period Pieces. Sorry I haven't done any movie reviews in a while. The Weight of Water is the movie I want to review today. And it has a very good cast, including Sarah Polley, Katrin Cartledge, Elizabeth Hurley, Sean Penn, Josh Lucas, Ciarán Hinds, Catherine McCormack, and Vanessa Shaw. This movie is based on a novel by Anita Shreve, and I actually tried to read that novel years ago, and I couldn't really get into it. I thought the writing style was a little bit on the boring side, but the movie has a very atmospheric, mysterious, kind of a menacing quality to it. It's a period piece set in the 1870s, but at the same time it has a parallel storyline taking place in, say, the early 2000s, and the year of the film, I believe, is 2000. So this movie's been around for a good 16 years. It takes place, both present and past, it takes place along the coast of New Hampshire. As a matter of fact, there is a small group of islands called Smutty Nose Islands, and they're about 10 miles off the coast of New Hampshire. And this movie is partially fact-based. There was a case in 1873 where two Norwegian women were murdered, but the facts of the case are debatable to this day. As far as this particular story, I'm not sure how much of the movie, the filmmakers and the author of the book, I'm not sure how much of this story is actually incorporated fact and how much of it is incorporated fiction. But it is a good movie. I've liked it since the day I saw it, and I think I saw it maybe a year or two after it came out. And I didn't really remember it being in the theaters very much. So anyway, story number one is about Norwegian immigrants who came all the way from Norway and settled on this really rocky, kind of inhospitable island. And they made their home there, and they made their living as fishermen. The husband went and caught fish with his friends, and he brought it home. And his wife pretty much processed the fish and kept the house and everything. And she wasn't a happy woman. She was in a miserable marriage. She wasn't in love with her husband. It was kind of an arranged marriage, and there were circumstances behind that, which I'll get into. And in the present storyline, you have a man and woman who have been in a marriage that's been troubled for quite a while. And they the woman works as a photographer for various magazines. And one of the magazines decided to do a story about this not so well-known case about the murders that happened 100 years ago, or over 100 years ago. Catherine McCormack plays the present-day woman who is the photographer. You might remember her from Braveheart, where she got very little to do besides, get naked and be with Mel Gibson and then get her throat slit as, the wife. He was married to her for a few days, and then they found out about it, and then they slit her throat for her trouble. Well, in this movie, she gives this really amazing performance, and she's one of the two main characters, I would say. And her character, Jean, is married to Sean Penn, who is a poet, and like most poets, most tortured artists, he's kind of a walking cliche. He's an alcoholic, he's selfish, he's a self-proclaimed asshole, talented asshole. He's not very, he knows that doesn't deserve the wife that he has, and that she's been trying her best to make the marriage work, and he's just not trying very hard enough. And he has a groupie in the form of Elizabeth Hurley, who walks around. She wears mostly white throughout the movie, and she kind of does everything in her power right in front of his wife to get his attention. She lays there topless in the sun, sunbathing, and just shamelessly, does all kinds of things to get him to look at her. She flirts with him. She just right in front of the wife. It's kind of disgusting in a way. And her boyfriend is played by Josh Lucas. He doesn't have a whole lot to do either. They're just kind of these ancillary characters, but in a way, Elizabeth Hurley's character plays a role in the mental evolution that Catherine McCormick's character goes through in the course of the movie. In the other timeline, which is what I would call the period timeline, the 1873 timeline, Sarah Polley plays the Norwegian housewife Maren, and she's married to John Huntfit, who is a Norwegian fisherman. And like I said, she's not happily married to him. It was an arranged marriage. And the reason why she was forced to marry this man is because her little tattletale sister Karen, played by Katrin Carledge, saw her with somebody, another boy, and tattled on her to Daddy, and Daddy didn't like that she was seeing another boy, so he figured she ought to go to America with this fisherman and, live an honest life. And Karen and Maren have a brother named Yvonne, and he's kind of the apple of Maren's eye, and she hates leaving him in Norway while she marries this old codger she doesn't even love. She doesn't mind leaving Karen behind because Karen's kind of a bitch to her, and she's the reason she had to marry some guy she doesn't love. So anyway, she's unhappy in America. She just kind of holds her trouble inside of her. She doesn't complain. She just isn't one to complain a lot. She just sort of takes life as it's shoved at her. Maren and Jean. Maren is the woman from the 19th century, and Jean is the one from the present time. They're both kind of parallel characters where they're both suffering and yet both keep it inside so much because they don't want to lose what they have because they're afraid they're going to get something even worse. And that's kind of both their downfall in the long run. Basically, they're both downtrodden, they're both oppressed. They have circumstances, that cause them to be unhappy and depressed. Maren is her opinion is that if she just keeps busy with the work on the homestead, cleaning the fish, keeping the house straightened up, then her troubles will just stay in the back of her mind. She can't have children. She realizes that early on, and she just keeps her secret rage and her secret misery inside of her. But the sad part is Karen, after their dad dies, Karen, the mean sister, comes to America to live, and Marin begs her husband, don't let her come here. And the husband says, oh, we have plenty of room. He doesn't even realize that Marin hates Karen because Karen's been such a bitch to her all her life. And then on top of that, some German guy named Wagner, played by Ciarán Hinds. Is it Kieran or Ciarán? I don't know. Sometimes the C's are hard C's, and other times they're soft C's. So I don't know if he's Irish or what. I haven't seen Ciarán Hinds in a lot of stuff. So anyway, Ciarán Hinds plays Louis Wagner, who is a German fisherman, and he is one of the friends of Marin's husband. He comes and he moves in, and so the house is crowded, and Marin has more work than she really deserves to have to do, including massaging his joints. This guy that she doesn't even know, massaging his joints and bringing him food into his bedroom, and he's kind of like a pervert. He seems to be really shady. The candle on the top of the cake is her brother, who she really loves, Ivan. He comes to America. Karen says, oh, Ivan's coming to America. Didn't he tell you? And she goes, no, I haven't had any letters from him lately. And Karen, being a bitch, she goes, oh, I thought he bore you a special affection, just being kind of a bitch to her. And but what she doesn't tell Marin is that Ivan's married to a beautiful Norwegian girl, and she's coming along for the trip. And as soon as Marin meets the new wife, whose name is Annette, she just kind of crumbles. She can see that everybody around her is having a pretty happy life, but she's stuck in this miserable marriage. She doesn't love her husband. Her husband's never mean to her, but she just, when you don't love somebody, it's not very fun being married to them. So, in the meantime, Jean, in the present, she starts to understand by reading all the old documents she gets documents while she's researching for her photography assignment of this old murder case, and she begins to think, I think that this girl Marin is the one that committed the murders. I don't think that Louis Wagner did it. And Louis Wagner was the one who was, convicted and ended up hanged for it. So why she starts to come to those conclusions is she's reading between the lines on all the documents and all the court records. There was one scene out of the whole movie that I thought was really stupid, pointless, and should have been left on the cutting room floors, when Sean Penn, the husband of Catherine McCormick in the present day storyline, he comes with her to the court or the Hall of Records, and he tries to get her to have sex with him in the Hall of Records in a public place. He turns the lights off like there's no other people there, maybe looking for paperwork and stuff. It's like, it was stupid. I think that there was a lot of parallels. Jean saw Liz Hurley's character, whose name, by the way, is Adeline. Jean would see Adeline flirting with Sean Penn, and that would enrage her, but she would stay very passive about it. Whereas Marin was very passive about her rage that Annette was married to Ivan. And they were both, they held their emotions inside until both of them came to a breaking point. And both of these protagonists eventually became antagonists in a sense. They became like, even if they were your protagonist to the very end, they also became your antagonists because they were driven to a state of insanity. It was kind of like this fable about, anybody can be driven to the breaking point. Because Karen was such a bitch to Marin, Marin ended up really attacking Karen and really brutalizing her. So anyway, Marin plays, she sets people up when she starts to get to where she's sick and tired of being the nice little wife that lets people walk all over her and lets everybody else have happy lives while she's miserable. And then Jean, in one scene, there's a storm coming and the bilge pump is flooded, and she's supposed to have the wheel, while the guys are down in the middle or in the bottom of the boat fixing the bilge pump. She's supposed to be steering them and keeping them in the right direction. Well, that stupid idiot Adeline, Liz Hurley's character, she comes up on the deck and she's all seasick and she's getting ready to fall into the water because, the seas are so rough. And Jean abandons her post at the wheel to go see if she can help Adeline. And then it's almost like she realizes what trouble Adeline's been to her, always flirting with Sean Penn and showing her tits off to Sean Penn and stuff, and in front of a married woman, flirting with a husband in front of his own wife and being such a bitch. It's like she let go of some kind of something and knocked her into the water. So it was almost like she attempted to murder Adeline. It was really strange. It was a strange, parallel portrait of the same person going mad, only 100 years apart. So it was very fascinating, a very unique story, uniquely presented. And unfortunately, it wasn't a cheerful ending for any of the parties in the movie. It was kind of sad. I wouldn't even say melancholy. It was just tragic. But I love the movie. I love it. It's so unique. And it's directed by Catherine Bigelow, which is a big plus. She directs all kinds of unique movies.